$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soul Blazer.
Hello, welcome to the Super NES podcast. This is episode 144. I am Greg. He is Joe. As always, we're very glad that you're here again this time. Joe, thank you again for joining us.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So we're starting to get into a groove here as far as the new host thing routine, thing going on. So that's cool. So this was Joe's turn to pick a game. And what game did you have us play this time?
I had us play Super Back to the Future 2, which is a Super Famicom exclusive.
Yes, which is the main reason why I never heard of this game, because it was a Japanese only. But very weirdly Japanese only. We'll get into that later on, I'm sure. But yeah, apparently this game is better well known than I realized. I guess it was just me who had heard about this. AVGN, for example, did an episode dedicated to this game a while ago, and so a lot of other websites have also talked about it. So this game's known, especially by people who enjoy the movies. So we're not going to talk about the whole Back to the Future franchise here, because I'm assuming most people here have probably seen it. If you haven't, you should. It's a very good trilogy.
Yeah, there's a guy Marty, there's a guy Doc. They build a time machine. They go back to the past. They go to the future. They go back to the past. That's how it all works out.
Yes. So yep. It made a very flop of a car. Everything's famous. When they started to use it in the movie.
Yep.
So there's that, and it was also in the news again last year, because it had been 30 years, because in Back to the Future 2 they go to the year 2019. So right. They did a couple skits or reunion thing, whatnot, to kind of celebrate that. So definitely still relevant. The trilogy's available for streaming on Netflix, as it just recently discovered, because this game focuses pretty much upon the events of Back to the Future 2, and I had meant to go back and watch it again, because it's been quite a while since I've seen it, but this last week was not very good for numerous reasons, and so time got away from me, and so I was unable to do so. But yeah, so it is on there. It's actually. When I was a kid, and for a long time, I remember how everybody said Back to the Future 1 was the better movie. Nowadays, it seems like the consensus is pretty much split as with the first or second one's the better movie.
Yeah, I mean, by far, in my opinion, the first is the gold standard. The second one is a little bit below that, and then obviously the third is way below that, in my opinion.
Yeah, but the third.
I'm sorry. I was going to say,
yeah.
Everybody has their own taste, and that's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? As the trilogy as a whole, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's almost held up there with Star Wars, almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
So. Yep, I agree with that. I do agree with you with the rankings. I don't think Back to the Future 3 was a bad movie. It just had some problems with it. The fact that they filmed a lot of both 2 and 3 at the same time and kind of rushed the development of 3 certainly showed.
Yes.
Certainly weakened it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because the movies were so popular, there have been a lot of games that have come out based off the movies over the years. Again, even more than I realized before I started doing research on this.
Yeah.
Most people are probably familiar with a few of these games. I'd say the most famous ones are probably the very infamous LJN Back to the Future game on the NES, which is not very good at all. It's games like this that gave it LJN a very poor reputation back in the day.
Yeah.
2 and 3, however, which came out the following year, is not as bad. that game's actually playable. So there was also a Back to the Future Part 2 for the Master System I've not played. There was a Back to the Future Part 3 for the Genesis, also have not played.
So the Back to the Future 3 on the Genesis is the whole reason why I gravitated towards this game.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that game on the Genesis is trash. If anybody who's ever played the Genesis version, they will tell you, like, just the first level alone, like, you start as Doc on a horse, and you got to dodge, jump, and, like, duck, and do different things to be able to get to Clara's cart, or carriage, or whatever you want to call it. And it's just a mess of a level where they literally throw everything at you, and it's just, like, balls to the wall right away. No difficulty spike, no nothing, just boom, we're going on the hardest setting, and enjoy. And a lot of people, if you look on reviews online, a lot of people will tell you, like, I didn't even get past the first level, and that's really how it was growing up too.
Right. Yeah. Well, hard to imagine anything being worse than the NES game, but I guess it's possible.
Yeah. So. I'd rather play the NES game, believe it or not.
The NES game did have good music for it, though. That's the one saving point of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
The soundtrack of that game is very good. So some of the other Back to the Future games I was aware of and have played over the years. There was a pinball game by Date East 1990 that was very good.
Mm-hmm.
It even had songs from the movie in it, which was nice. There was also a short-lived Facebook game. Like in 2010 that didn't last very long.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And there's also the very well known and pretty well selling actually Telltale game Back to the Future came out 2010 for numerous systems.
Oh, that's a great series.
Yeah, it is pretty good. Telltale games for me are hit or miss.
Yeah.
But this one's like pretty good. Definitely. I mean, like they got most of the voice. They got most of the cast to come back to like did the voices.
Right.
So, obviously, like Michael J. Fox is not in very good health these days, so he only had a couple cameos, but...
Yeah, but the kid they got to replace him sounds almost exactly like him. So it was very well casted.
Yeah. I also remember playing a slot machine that was Back to the Future themed, like several years ago. So
nice.
As a matter of fact, I think like it was at Twin Rivers I actually played it at.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm trying to remember. This is 2006, so chances are it's probably not going to be like around as common now as it was back then.
Right.
But who knows? So, some of the other lesser known Back to the Future games came out for the computers. The Ataris, the Amigas, the Commodores, the DOSes, they all had like Back to the Future games. As well. There was also a game based off the theme park ride, which is curious.
You talking about the one for the GameCube?
Yes. Did you play that one?
Yeah. It was basically the general premise of the game is that you are a child walking around Universal Studios, Florida, assumably. You pick up trash throughout the park, and by picking up trash, you earn coins, which can get you on rides based on the different themed movies that were associated with it. And none of the mini games were good, and that's the thing. They were all mini games. There was the main game was picking up trash. Like, who wants to play that? It was a novelty, obviously, when it came out. Sure. It was like, a Back to the Future game, and that's how they sold it. Which was the big problem. It was some shady marketing, because I bought a GameCube and I bought that game, and I was sorely disappointed. So,
did you have a chance to go to Universal Studios and enjoy the Back to the Future ride, like while it was still in operation?
No. Sad thing is, in my life, the only time I've gone to any real big theme park was when I was like 6. I got to go to Disney World in California.
Disneyland is in California.
Okay, so Disneyland in California, and I got to experience an earthquake. Other than that, yeah. I remember the whole time I was like searching for like the place, which was a set piece for the show Kids Incorporated, which was big at the time, and geared towards my age group of 6, 7 at the time. So that was like the whole thing, and for me, like I was bummed the entire trip because we did not find the place, which of course obviously doesn't exist, but I assumed that it was, filmed in Disneyland and whatever else. But yeah, so
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I've been to Universal Studios once, like about it's about like, I think it was like the 90s. I was there sometime, but yeah, I definitely remember riding. Yeah, I definitely remember like being the Back to the Future ride. Like it was pretty good. Definitely like one of the better, the better rides there. I actually enjoy Universal in some ways. Actually, a lot of ways, I enjoy Universal better than Disney World. Because Disney World has the whole package going for it,
right?
But the rides as a whole, if you just want the rides themselves,
yeah,
I think
Universal
Studios has a better.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So not that Disney, Disney does have good rides, but you go to Disney for the whole experience, not just like a theme park thing.
Yeah.
I
mean, fun anecdote to that. My son has basically experienced Back to the Future the ride because they released like the actual movie. On I believe it was the DVDs, the bonus features. It might have been the Blu-rays.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, yep.
But I had my office chair, which swiveled and everything else, and he was younger, obviously, at the time. And I put it on for him one day and would move the chair and whatnot to interact with what was going on the TV, just to entertain him. So,
yeah,
I mean,
cool.
He technically got to experience it, and I got to see it, but that's as far as it's gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's impressive. I mean, like, I'm sure there's a lot of video out there for it because the ride was out there for a long time. The ride was from 1991 and like until 2017.
Yep.
I'm sorry, 2007, like when they closed it. Well, they didn't close it. They remodeled it to be a Despicable Me themed, themed ride instead. But yeah. So So anyway, and then finally. And then finally, the most recent game that's come out Back to the Future themed was the Lego Dimension game from 2015. So, which came out from multiple systems as well.
Yeah, I never played that.
I haven't either, but most Lego games are pretty good. So I'm sure this one probably is pretty decent as well.
Yeah, the Twist of Life thing is kind of hard, and that thing died out pretty quick, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I hoped it was a good game because that's cool that they had like Lord of the Rings and they had Gremlins. They had a whole bunch of really cool movie packs.
Oh, they had a lot like Indiana Jones, Star Wars.
So.
I think they had Harry Potter too.
Yeah.
Also, Batman.
Yep.
I don't remember the Batman ones. Yeah. But yeah, most of the games are pretty good. But anyway. We are here to talk about the more obscure, because it was Japanese only, game, officially known as Super Back to the Future Part 2. You will see its name printed in different forms. Of course it had Super in it because a lot of Super Famicom games use Super as part of the title somewhere on it. So the game came out in 1993, and it was developed by a company called Daft. It was published by a company called Toshiba EMI, which so we're talking about both companies here for a little bit. Daft I've never heard of, and there's a good reason for that. Most of their games were Japan only. This was actually their very first game, apparently, according to the list I could find online. After this, they made a whole bunch of racing and fighting games, and they were around from 1993 until 2000 to 2005. A couple of their fighting games came over here to the States, but most of their games stayed in Japan only. So pretty much a very niche developer. Toshiba EMI is a bit more interesting. They were partly owned by Toshiba, which is the large corporate company. Like many other companies did in those days, they saw how profitable the video game market was during the 90s and wanted to have a piece of it themselves. So they formed up a division to capitalize on that. But EMI was also involved with music, and as a result, about 10 years ago or so, they merged with another company, and they're now known as EMI Music Japan. They are the Japanese branch of EMI, so which is one of the which is one of the largest music studios. Well, I should say publishers to the world. So, this being a Japanese game, there is of course Japanese. However, there's not really very much Japanese in the game. There is a fully there is a fully translated ROM out there that you can play, which is the version I played. But I'm also like, why? What's the point?
Yeah, visually with the cutscenes that they show in between the levels, you can clearly make out that they're following the same story that's in Back to the Future 2, the movie. So if you've seen the movie, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, because there's a good amount of English in the game. The title screen and options are all English. The chapter names are all English.
Yep.
So, like, you have an idea of what's going on. The Japanese is only used for the cutscenes that show up every now and then during gameplay to advance, through the game. So, but yeah, so like very minimal Japanese. Very playable. As is, like, for sure.
Yeah.
So, George recommended this game. Had you played this game before, George? What was the reason for your actual recommendation like this one?
You mean Joe?
Sorry. Damn it! I was just saying that earlier too. Yeah, I'll get over it eventually.
Come on, 4 shows in, you figured you'd have it down by now.
Yes, well, Eddie's coming back next week for flavor guest spots.
Yeah.
So that won't help things either, I'm sure. But,
Right.
But
so basically, my history with this is it's one of those as the early aughts were upon us and emulation was starting to become bigger, getting ROM packs and whatnot, I discovered this game just randomly, and I fell in love with it. And at the time, back then, I beat it. This time around, spoiler, I didn't even bother trying. But it's one of those. It's a simple premise. It's almost like Mario. You're picking up coins. You're jumping on enemies' heads. The only difference is you are kind of floaty because of the hoverboard, and you do like weird somersault movements, and then you can use like the hoverboard to jump up along the wall to be able to get up certain walls and stuff. So there's some interesting aspects to it, other than the simple Mario, bump the head, get the coin sort of thing. And some of the power-ups are pretty cool. You know how you have to go to a vending machine to be able to get the power-up. That's cool. So the coins aren't worthless,
Right, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, yeah, because there are some, as you just talked about, there are some like unique twists to this game.
Yeah.
By and by, it is a platform, which is the easiest way to take a movie license to turn into a game. Usually it doesn't turn out very well, but yeah, platformers are definitely the like tried and true way of like, well, we don't know how to make this fit. We have a license, or we have a license, or we're contractually obligated to make a game. Let's just make a platform out of it.
Right, and I'll get it out of the way. I mean, this is not a great game to, at all, but it's a serviceable game, and it's playable. And compared to the other Back to the Future stuff that was available at the time, this is far superior.
Well, yeah, I certainly would agree with some of that. We can get into that, like, as we talk about the game. It's a pretty standard length game as far as like platformers go. You have, there's 6 stages. Each stage has either like, each stage can have anywhere from like 1 to 3 stages in it, plus also like a boss fight. So like the game's not overly too long. There's like, about 45 minutes, give or take, is pretty much the average for finishing the game if you want to finish it.
Yeah.
There's no continues. You are given, however, you're given a password, however, after you finish it. After you finish like every section. So
yeah, at the start of every section, they give you the password.
And these passwords are in English. Thank God for that. Yeah. So, and they're very simple, like 4-letter password words, like eyes, rock, 0.
Right.
So, not that hard to do at all. You can also put in passwords if you want to, see the cutscenes of the game. So, which is also like a nice touch. So, you're basically playing Marty, as Joe mentioned, and you're going through the events of the movie. The 3 different time periods, doing various things, and you're totally navigating around on a skateboard. So, I mean, I think the game would have been fine if you had been part of the game on a skateboard. I kind of think the fact that I think maybe the fact that they overused it a little bit with the whole skateboard, always on the skateboard thing.
Yeah. Marty does,
yeah, Marty does look like Mario. So I'll give it that.
Right.
But
And
at the same time,
I was gonna say it's in a nice little chibi style almost. The anime feel is really nice, in my opinion.
yeah. So the anime is one speculation as to why this game never came out in the States.
Right.
Because anime was not very popular back in those days. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, who knows? But anyway, but yeah. So the motions of Marty on the skateboard are very comical. It's like when you jump, there's like this really weird head over heel flipping motion. You're going like, what? No skateboard operates in that way.
Right.
So yeah, the animations are very strange, but yeah. So you can you can collect coins, as Joe mentioned, and you can use the coins to get power ups. I did not take notes of the power ups by accident. Do you remember what kind of power ups that you can get in the game?
Oh, I know there's an invisibility. Obviously extra lives.
Right.
And then I want to say there's something that makes you jump higher. Because
yes, yep, you're right.
Because generally, how you jump higher is either you bounce on the enemies and kind of do like a double jump, or you can jump on projectiles. Like in the later levels, there's bullets that you can jump up on. So
yes, right. I think it's also a power up that allows you to go faster too. So
yes.
There's also a power up to give you some hit points back. Because you got 3 hit points.
Okay.
Like in the game, represented by bandages in the corner. So, sorry, not bandages, skateboards. They look like bandages, but they're actually skateboards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So once that runs out, you lose a life. If you lose all your life, game's over. So graphically speaking, as we mentioned, the game has an anime style. The graphics of the game are pretty good. They're very bright, colorful. Some good scrolling. Some good scrolling effects in the background. Not a lot of variety to the stages, I think, but the actual graphics themselves are pretty high quality.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. The enemies are also very limited. There's not really a lot of them, but the enemies that are in the game are very well animated. Marty's moves are animated pretty well too. The actual whole gliding around and jumping and whatnot things.
Yeah.
So it's a very cute looking game as far as the whole there's a Japanese word for that. It's about the over the top anime this reminds me of, but
I can't help you there.
I'm not gonna worry about that right now. So
I really enjoyed the Biff fights. He's a very large sprite, and he makes some great expressions when you jump on his head and everything else. I really enjoyed all the boss fights in this game.
Yeah, I thought most of the game was relatively easy, but the boss fights are definitely the most challenging.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They definitely give you a whole lot of a challenge. Probably finish those things and whatnot. So, anything you want to say about the graphics?
The only thing I had written down was the fact that I love the anime style. And obviously that, the Biff bosses were pretty cool. But yeah, I think amazingly, I discovered this game in 2000, probably 2002, somewhere around there. This came out, 94, 95?
93.
93. And here we are in 2020, and honestly, as mediocre as the game is, it still holds up. It's still a good-looking game. It still sounds great, which I'm sure we'll get into. The music is amazing. So, overall, amazing.
Since you, I agree. Since you brought it up, let's transition over to the music. I was surprised at how much. Movie music they actually used in this game. There's a lot of songs. I recognize the movie in this game.
You know what's interesting is the only thing that I really recognized fully was the theme song, Back to the Future theme song, which they did a great 16-bit rendition.
Yes, I did.
It's amazing. Other levels use tiny pieces of other music, but then it's morphed into its own thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's original music, but it's kind of inspired by. And I enjoyed all the stage music. The soundtrack is fantastic. This is another great game that has a great soundtrack.
Yeah, the music's very good. I really wasn't expecting much of this in this game as far as musical goes, because a lot of platformers outside of by and by, I think that with a few exceptions, like the Mario games,
Right.
Most platformers have very boring soundtracks, but the fact that you use so much of the game music, the fact that you actually use so much of the movie music in the game, made for a very entertaining experience. And yes, you're right, the music carries over, like very well.
Yeah.
So, it's a very good soundtrack, like for sure. My biggest complaint with this game, the controls. Oh boy, do I hate these controls.
I'm, honestly going back to it, I can't, I'm with you. You have to be moving and you have to be pushing the B button to be able to move, and your jumps are based on momentum. And that was my biggest issue, going back to play this, is the whole, if you're standing in one spot and you try to jump, you're only going to jump a little bit because you got to have that momentum to really get going.
Right. And
like I said, Marty feels slippery because he's on a hoverboard. So that doesn't help things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I understand why they put the whole game with him on a hoverboard. I wish some of the game had not been, but but there's no reason they had to make the hoverboard that difficult to control, because, even though I ragged on the NES games quite a bit, at least in those games, you could actually control yourself with a hoverboard, like in those games. I mean, this one, the analogy comes to mind with this one, like the hoverboard is very slippery. I think I was on ice.
Yeah.
And the fact it can't move forward without sliding is also annoying, because it kind of makes it very hard to do those pinpoint jumps that you may want to get to bop an enemy or get a coin, like, or whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
and this is where I'll mention the levels sometimes are way too long. There's no checkpoints, and if you have not mastered that whole slippery feeling and holding B to get momentum and jump and all that other stuff, you will die quick and end up seeing the beginning of the level. That's probably the most annoying thing, especially when you go to find out after you beat it that you were that close to the goal and you didn't realize it.
Right. So, yeah, it's like, I don't understand why the controls are the way that they are. I mean, like, they could have found they definitely could have found a different way to handle the controls and not make it so floaty and so hard to use.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I don't know. My thing too is like button placement. Like the BY placement wasn't that bad, but if you've played a platformer before, like, like B goes, faster or makes you run faster, A makes you jump. So having it be B and Y was kind of weird. Like I kept trying to hit A.
That has a lot to do with I understand that, because that has a lot to do with the typical Japanese preference for buttons. I mean, like most Japanese games will have the buttons laid out that way.
That makes sense. Okay.
When they come over to the States, like, it changed our tastes. But yeah, I mean, like, they're not. But yeah, just to be clear, it doesn't make the game unplayable. Once you get the hang of it, you actually can get around pretty well.
Right, absolutely.
But the problem, but control and fine tuning in this game is a lot harder and a lot more difficult than it should be. I mean, there's no reason. A Mario platform like a Mario game, it's like the easy control. Right. There's no reason this game needs to be as difficult to control as it is.
Yeah. By the end of level 1, you should know what's going on and how your character reacts to different things. And I felt like in this game, like, it took the first 2 levels to get a full grip on being able to move Marty and get him to do what you want him to do.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So another problem I had with the game was the fact that this game, it just got boring to me after a while. I mean, like, I did finish it because the game wasn't overly difficult. I mean, like, there are some difficult sections. Most of the difficulty in this game is imposed by the slippery controls. But so that adds most of the difficulty to the game. Cut that out. There's a few sections of the game that are difficult, and the boss fights are tough. Right. But beyond that, I thought this game was overall one of the more easier platformers I've played. And there's just not enough variety with your tactics and the enemies and whatnot to keep things interesting.
Yeah, and it goes back to the visuals that you were talking about earlier, how most of the levels look very much the same and, have almost the same kind of layout. It's very monotonous for sure. And even the boss fights, I mean, it's like the first fight with Biff, it's like you jump on the monitor, you jump on his head, you get down, you jump on the monitor, jump on his head, and it's over and done with.
Yeah.
It's the second
So-
boss fight with Griff where I ended up dying and just saying, you know what, I'm not going to continue. And that was, it was having to try to jump over, those use the platforms to kind of get that height to jump on top of him and send him off towards the clock tower. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, you're not missing too much. The ending of this game is actually the ending of this game. Not only is it very short, it makes no sense. It's also like, it's also like not very much fun at all.
Right.
So, yeah, not a very satisfying ending. I mean, so I guess overall, if you enjoy platformer games and if you're a Back to the Future fan, I think there's enough here to keep you fun. Sorry, that's not good English. There's enough here to keep you entertained and have fun with for a while. But really, outside of those qualifications, this is one you can skip, I think. I mean, is it a better game than most of the games we got over here in the States? Sure, but that's a very low bar.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not very hard to very hard to make a better game. So.
Yeah, this is one of those oddities where I'd tell you absolutely, play the ROM, use emulation. I probably, I don't know. I'm sure you'll get to how much the cart is and whatnot, but
Yep.
I wouldn't seek out the cart for this game.
Right.
Even with how much I did enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, outside a gaming collector or somebody's a Back to the Future fan,
right?
I really don't see. But yeah, so prices of this game are all over the place, which we'll get here to a little bit. But but yeah, I mean, the game itself does hold up reasonably well today, as you mentioned before, Joe. It's it's still pretty much the same game now as it was back then. So, outside of a few things a few things in the game that are very impressive, like music. It's a very average platformer game, in most regards.
Yeah.
So
I would say if you're really curious, but you don't want to put in the gameplay, there's long plays on YouTube.
Yep. Right.
And you can experience pretty much all of it right there. And you're going to see the visuals, you're going to get the great music, and you're going to get to see the cheesy ending. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about this briefly a bit ago, but I guess nobody's ever said anything as to why the game didn't come out here in the States. The speculation. This is a very small developer. Publisher did not release anything over here in the States, so there could be a licensing issue. Maybe they only got the rights to do Back to the Future in Japan, for example, and didn't have the rights to it might have been a deal where okay, LGA got the rights to do Back to the Future games in the States, but this company got the rights to do the Back to the Future games in Japan.
Right.
So, also so yeah, very well covered for a rights issue. Also, the anime look probably I think also, I heard it because anime was not as was big here back then as is now.
Right.
So, yeah, there's some speculation on it.
Yeah, I think both of those are very good points. I think those 2 points right there are probably exactly the reason why it didn't come out here.
But most of the contemporary reviews of this game are pretty good, actually. On a scale of 1 to 10, they usually average around a 6 to an 8. So, higher marks than I would have given it, but this game does seem to be pretty popular. The people like to play it these days.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I watched a couple YouTube reviews, and they, there was 3 of them that I saw that praised it and left it in the mediocre to excellent, and then there was one guy who was it's below, just below. He was 1 to 5, it'd be a 2, and
yeah,
it's understandable. I can see all the angles. I can see where you could find this to be a great game. I can see where it's mediocre, and I can see where you're you know what, it's a bad game. I can see all those angles. So.
Yeah, well, I don't want to sound like a middling road person on everything, but yeah, but yeah, I think personally, I'd say the game's mediocre. So I mean, it's not horrible. It's not, there's definitely a lot worse platformer games out there, but
it just means I got to step up my game as far as picking games. 2 mediocre games now.
well, it's a very curious game. I mean, I mean, it's definitely very unique.
Right.
So, yeah. So the fact that we got so the fact that this came out in Japan, whereas we got the Master System version of the game, is very curious.
Right.
So, But yeah, I mean, like, this game was probably made to tailor more Japanese taste.
Mhm.
So I think it's another reason why the game just feels so different than what we used to hear, like in the West.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, anyway, yeah, not the worst game. Like I said before, like you're a platformer fan, or if you enjoy the movies a lot, this is worth checking out. Just for like just for curiosity's sake.
Mhm.
At the very least, I think you probably have like a few hours of fun with this.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, any final thoughts that you want to talk about this game, Joe, before we move on to the the eBay section?
No, I think I've spoken my mind about this game, and if they haven't gotten it by now, I mean, come on. At least play it. Just give it a shot.
Our platform episodes tend to be a bit shorter because it's like how much can you talk about a platformer, really?
Right.
But,
He jumps on heads and collects coins. Come on.
Yeah.
How far can that idea go?
Yeah, been there, done that for many years now at this point. So,
Right.
But eBay, however, was interesting because there are a lot of forms of this game available for a lot of different prices.
Oh, okay.
It's a little, so this is a little confusing. I'm gonna do the best I can to explain this. If you are unsure about any of this, Joe, let me know because the big chances are you're confused. The listener out there is also going to be confused.
Okay.
So, as I said, this game's only available in this game's only available like Japan. So if you want to buy the game, there's 3 different versions of the game that you can buy if you go look on eBay.
Oh God.
You can find the original game from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
You can find a hack of this game where like somebody took the ROM of the game, translated it, put it into like a Super NES style cart and selling it that way.
Okay.
And that form is available also in PAL format, by the way, and not just like NTSC. So you can get it like both ways if you want to. Which I found which was very curious. Or if you want it, or if you're a complete collector or a real Back to the Future fan, there's also somebody went above and beyond just to hack in the game and released a full scale mock-up of the manual and game box as well.
Oh wow.
So like a CIB version of the hacked game.
Okay.
That's why I said there's 3 different forms of the games available, and depending upon what you're looking for. So, the game is available on eBay. Not super common, but there are copies out there. Looking at the versions of the game in North America only that were available in either hack or full game format. There's 8 of them currently being sold. 9 of them were sold recently. This also includes, by the way, the very few copies. Actually, no, there were not any. There actually were not any original Japanese games available in North America. If you want the original game, you have to buy it from Japan.
Okay.
Where the game is very plentiful, by the way. So it's like so those numbers I quoted before are only for the translated hacked ROM full game versions of the game. So anyway, we'll start with the original pricing like in Japan. This game must be pretty rare in Japan because these prices are pretty high. Also the fact these prices include shipping, and obviously shipping from Japan is going to be
right.
More expensive. So taking that into account, carts only in this game have sold recently anywhere from $70 to $132.
Wow.
And if you want CIB, those copies have sold anywhere from $180 to $196.
Wow. Okay.
So very expensive game if you want to get from Japan. So I'm assuming the high price is because the high price is a combination of the fact the game was not made in high amounts, and also the fact it's a popular franchise.
Yeah,
so,
that's very possible.
So the hacked version of the game can be had for cheaper prices. So like what I mean by hack is like people have taken the game, because we mentioned before there is a translated ROM that's available out there. People have taken the game, burned it onto a Super NES style cart. So they've actually sacrificed a Super NES cart by taking out the ROM chip, putting this ROM chip into it instead, and can make up a new label for it, which usually is speculation as what the game label might have looked like,
right?
If it had come out here in the States. So So yeah, so this version of the game, because it's on NTSC or PAL format, like I mentioned before, there are people selling PAL versions of this as well. But so you can buy a game that's available in either NTSC or PAL format, plug into your Super NES, plug into your emulation station, whatever whatever you have, and play it that way. So it's like it was like next best thing to original hardware,
right?
Because for practical purposes, you are playing off a physical ROM. You're just playing a game that was not physically released here, like in this territory.
Right.
So, and considering this is a fair amount of work, the price of this hack part are not that bad compared to some of the other hack copies I've seen over the years. Maybe because the fact this version is not very popular.
That's possible.
The hacked version of the game is sold anywhere from $25 to $40.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So, and I mentioned before, there is somebody out there must be a collector, because only collectors like to be this nuts. Who's actually gone one step further and then a complete mock-up like what the manual in the box for this, like what it would look like if it come out here in the States. So, and again, considering how much work is involved in this, $50 for this is not a bad price to pay for it.
That's not bad at all.
No. So anyway, did that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of ways to get this game depending on how you want to play it. So, it's a very interesting platformer game of the series. Probably there's not going to be, I shouldn't say this. I mean, it's like, there have not been many Back to the Future games released recently. There was the Lego game came out in 2015. The pinball game was ported to the Pinball FX3 game in 2017 as a table. So that's pretty much about it as far as like new games in the franchise.
Right.
That said, the franchise is still very popular. People still have a lot of affection for it. I know they've talked about rebooting it at various points over the years. Nothing's happened to those plans. Maybe with the best.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Zemeckis has said numerous times.
There might be another movie, or game at a point.
Right. Yeah, Robert Zemeckis has said numerous times that he does not want to see a reboot.
Right. So
we'll see.
I mean, yeah, and so a sequel at this point with everybody getting up there in age is probably not going to happen either.
Right.
But
yeah, we're not going to get Bill and Ted 3 Face the Music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that still boggles my mind. They're actually doing a third movie in that franchise, but
and it was actually good.
Oh, you've seen it already?
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, yeah, I mean, the games are hit and miss over the years for sure. But like I said, the franchise is so popular. So
yeah,
who knows? Like we might see just some other games.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I'd definitely be for new Back to the Future games. That's for sure.
Right. I mean, yeah, because there's a lot of ways to do this game. I mean, you could. I mean, you could kind of take the Telltale approach and go heavy on the story, but still have things like contests, contests, various games,
right?
Whatnot thrown in there, flavoring in for good measure. So, but I could even probably see this possibly working like an RPG format.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but something went really, really bat crazy on it, but
right.
So. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, a very interesting look at a very interesting game. That part of a it's part of a much loved franchise. So shame never came out here in the West, but probably would not have sold very well if it had for various reasons. So probably best this game stayed in Japan.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's about it. That's all I can think about at least. Anything else you want to add at the end here, Joe?
No, like I said, I think I've pretty much spoken my mind on this.
Okay, well, as always, we appreciate you being on, you being here in the podcast, like me, Joe, and we also appreciate the listeners out there for listening to us as always.
Yes.
If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please feel free to submit them either in our Facebook group, or you can also send me an email directly to the SNES podcast at yahoo.com. Joe, how can the good people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Facebook just under Joe Copel, or you can email me at joesux30@gmail.com.
Okay, great. So, as mentioned previously, next episode, George has requested to come back on the podcast because he wants to talk to us again. And of course, being a lover of Japanese games, he wants to bring a Japanese game to the table again. So, why I'm not surprised.
The battle of the co-hosts.
Yes. So he wants to look at a game called Metal Max Returns, which I'm like, that doesn't have anything to do with the movie, does it? So, I don't know. Maybe I've not started playing it yet.
You talking about Mad Max?
Oh yeah, Mad Max. But there wasn't. Yeah, but there was a Metal Max game. Maybe maybe this is a sequel to that Metal Max game I'm thinking about. Anyway, I've not started playing. I've not started playing this game yet. It also is available in fully translated ROM form. So so that should not be like a problem. But it would be great to have him back in the podcast.
Yeah, it'd be good to have him back, and it sounds like this is going to be a strange game.
Yep. So I guess we're going back to the future of George again here next time.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks again for taking time to listen to us. As always, we appreciate it very much. And take care, everybody, and see you again soon.
Have a good night.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Super power.